All right, welcome everyone to the Great D's of Thanksgiving. Before we begin, just want to thank our sponsors for this week's Zoom learning, sponsored by Yaakov and Devorah Shore, in memory of Gussi Bas Chaim. Our neshama should have an aliyah. We thank them very much for their sponsorship and helping us learn Torah on a consistent basis. You know, this topic of, is, what's the Jewish position, the Torah's position on Thanksgiving, is one that I appreciate giving. I am thankful to give this shir. Jack, that one was for you. I appreciate the shir because, I grew up in a home that is a very unique home, in the sense, maybe not unique for the United States, being that the United States is a melting pot, but it really was a melting pot. It is a melting pot. I have a lineage that dates back in the United States all the way back to the Civil War period in a small little town in Somerville, New Jersey. And then on my father's side, I have, roots in North Africa, Libya, and in Israel and in Slovakia. And somehow that all came together in this country where there's religious freedom, where we are able to express ourselves freely in this republic. And it's something that in our household, every Thanksgiving, we would come together really just to be able to give our Hakaras HaTov to the Medina Shel Chesed, to this amazing country that we live in. My grandmother, Allah Shalom, my paternal grandmother, the one from North Africa, from Libya, Thanksgiving was like her favorite day of the year. It was the most fascinating thing. She loved Thanksgiving, and I think it's because she had a real deep sense of Hakaras HaTov to this country. But regardless of the emotional pull to observe Thanksgiving, to sit around the table and recognize what we're thankful for and eat some turkey and stuffing and cranberry sauce, aside from that emotional drive to be involved in the day, there is also, of course, we as Jews need to be able to put aside our emotions in order to see objectively what the Torah's perspective is in engaging in this. And we have to do that with everything. This was the lesson from Korach, where Korach was driven by a certain logic or agenda of just, it has to fit into what to me makes sense. But Moshe was trying to teach Korach, well, we have to look at what the Torah's objective of what makes sense or doesn't make sense is, in order to see whether or not we should be engaged in this activity. So with regard to the topic of Thanksgiving, it really begins with the general concept of doing behaviors that are not, let's say, written explicitly in the Torah, and even outside the realm of Jewish custom. What about secular custom? What's our general approach to secular custom? So the Torah tells us in Parshas Achrei Mos, the Torah says, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor, that Hashem said to Moshe the following, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'amarta alehem ani Hashem Elokechem. Tell the Jewish people, I'm God. Kemaise Eretz Mitzrayim. Now God tells us a halacha, tells us a rule, that the way of the land of Mitzrayim, Asher Yeshaftem Ba, the place that you came from. So we are all products of where we come from. God is trying to say, well, while that is true and you may be influenced from where you came from, make sure that you don't just act like the citizens of the place that you originated from Eretz Mitzrayim. Lo sa'asu k'ma'ase Eretz Canaan, and don't act like the inhabitants of the land of Canaan, of the place that you are going to. Asher ani mevi etchem shama, where I'm going to bring you. Lo sa'asu, don't act like them. Don't follow their statutes. Don't follow their customs. You are the Am HaNivchar. You are the chosen nation. You're the greatest nation in the world. Ani Hashem Elokechem, Asher hotzitzichem me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am Hashem that took you out from the land of Egypt because you are not Egyptians, you are not Canaanites, you are the Jewish people. And therefore, es mishpatai ta'asu, continues the next pasuk, God expresses, therefore, you don't follow their statutes, even if they may be just, and it seems like it makes sense. Regardless, it would seem as though what the Torah, just from reading what's going on in the psukim over here, et mishpatai ta'asu, follow the Torah. If it fits within the Torah framework, great, do it, follow it. To follow them, Ani Hashem Elokechem, again emphasizing, I am Hashem your God. And then again, follow my statutes, follow my ways, follow my laws. When you do it, that's the way to live, Ani Hashem. And then the Torah goes into some of those practices and, giving very specific examples. So what do we do with this halacha? What are the parameters of do not follow the ways of the non-Jews? Charitable giving is something that non-Jews do. So if that's the case, so should we remove the tzedakah box at shul? Of course, that doesn't make any sense, right? So what are the parameters of this halacha, right? So this is what our Shulchan Aruch is for. Rabbi Yosef Karo, the Holy Rabbi Yosef Karo, 1488 to 1575, codified all of our Jewish law, was a halachic revolutionary. Without Rabbi Yosef Karo, I don't know where we would be today. Rabbi Yosef Karo writes in Yoredei Siman Kuf Ayin Ches the following: Ein holchin bechukos halovdei kochavim, that a person should not follow the ways of the non-Jews. V'lo yilbosh malbush hamiyuchad lahem. You shouldn't wear certain dress that they wear. If they're dressing a certain way, so you should dress a different way. V'lo yigdal tzitzis rosho. You don't don't grow out your hair in the way that they grow out their hair. Kemor tzitzis rosham. V'lo yigalech me'atztadin. V'yaniach haser be'emsa. Don't cut off the hair on the side and leave the part in the middle. This is an example the Shulchan Aruch is giving of like a mohawk. It seems like v'lo yigalech haser mekeneged panav me'ozen la'ozen. Don't shave the part of your beard that is between your ears to your face. And just leaving a big sideburns. All right, these are examples of these. We don't get bogged down on the details. These are just examples the Shulchan Aruch is presenting of. This is in the 16th century, the Shulchan Aruch is writing. These are the practices of non-Jews. So he's giving very specific examples. Certain types of buildings. Okay, again, more examples. Says the Rama. However, there is some room to work within the framework of society, meaning that if we didn't do anything like the non-Jews, so if you're not living in even inside of a ghetto, I was going to say unless you're living in a ghetto, but even inside of a ghetto, I mean, there are in the shtetl, there are just basic practices that non-Jews do, and does that mean that it just becomes written off completely? So it comes along the Ramah and he clarifies a little bit for the Shulchan Aruch. Rav Moshe Isserlis of Krakow, the contemporary of the Shulchan Aruch, and he says. So you should be separated in your actions, in your dress, etc. This is only prohibited, says the Rama, if the behavior that the non-Jews are involved in, they are doing it for either pritzus, which basically to act in a disgusting manner, or kigon shenagu libosh mabushim adumim v'hu malbush asarim ukidome. Like, for example, dressing like a priest, says the Rama, meaning that the priest dresses in a way, or at least when, or a cardinal, let's say, for example, mabushim adumim, they're dressing to play the part of someone who is representing the church. So therefore, if I decided to dress exactly like a cardinal or a bishop, so I would be basically giving credence to the avodah zara, giving credence to potentially idolatry, non-Jewish belief, non-Jewish theology. So that, the Ramah says, is where one would fall into the trap of buchu koseim lo selechu. When the Ramah says, when the Torah says that one cannot follow the ways of the non-Jews, what it means is don't follow the ways of the non-Jews when those ways are the style connected to their religion. But if it's not connected to their religion, so then, or to inappropriate behavior, so then, and it makes sense to do, so then what's the problem with doing the same type of activities as them? You can go to the same supermarket to them. You could use the same shopping carts as them. Why should that be a problem? It's acting like them in the sense of acting like their religion, acting like their beliefs. Or a certain behavior that really just doesn't make any sense at all. It's nonsense. Say the certain things a person would be engaged in for leisure, that a person needs to be very careful to think about what they get involved if they're just doing it to act like the non-Jews. So I have a Rabbi of David Hirschlita. So he likes to give the example of that, Air Jordans were very popular, at least when I was growing up, the Air Jordan sneaker. So the Air Jordan sneaker, everyone, wanted to have an Air Jordan sneaker. So why do you want an Air Jordan sneaker? Do you want the Air Jordan sneaker because you really feel as though it's going to improve your basketball, your jump shot? So if you feel it's really going to improve your jump shot, okay. So the Ramah says if it makes sense, so there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're getting the Air Jordans because I want to be like Mike, I want to be like Michael Jordan, just stam. It's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. You're not going to be any more like Michael Jordan just because you wear Air Jordan sneakers. You're not going to become a better basketball player. It doesn't make any sense. If you want to just be like Mike, but there are other just as good sneakers for you, so then it makes sense to get the other sneakers. But if you really feel as though these shoes are going to help my basketball game, so then there'd be nothing wrong with purchasing those sneakers. That is the opinion of the Ramah. The Gra on the right side of the screen, the Gra takes a much more conservative approach. That just happened to work out like that. On the right side of the aisle, you'll find the Gra. The Gra has a different, more stringent approach to this halacha of buchu koseim lo selechu and its parameters. Now, the Ramah is based on the opinion of the Ran and the Maharik. The Gra takes the opinion of Tosfos. Now, Tosfos' perspective is when the Torah says u'bechu koseim lo selechu, do not follow their ways. The Torah was not mincing its words. Again, going back to the context of the pasuk, God is taking us from Egypt to Canaan, to Eretz Yisrael. And in both of those places, there are inhabitants that have certain practices. You have to do whatever you can to make yourself different. That is the opinion of Tosfos. It's based on Gemaras, of course. It's not just reading Psukim. It's based on Gemaras, based on Tosfos' understanding, and the Gra feels as though Tosfos is more accurate. Says the Gra the following, quoting from Tosfos, who he passes like, he says, Ela devandai hakol aser. All of these practices that the Ramah is pointing out, hakol aser, rak dafka lilmod mehem, hakol aser, rak dafka lilmod mehem aser. Anything you would pick up from them, anything you would learn from them would be prohibited. Now, if this is the only way to shop for fruits and vegetables is to go to the supermarket and to use their shopping carts. So okay, you're not learning from their practices. But if it's something that the non-Jews invented, that you are picking up on their practice, you are adopting their practice. So says the Gra, it'd be completely prohibited. Unlike the Ramah says, well, if it's within Torah values, if it's within Torah hashkafa, I don't see the problem with it. I don't see the issue. But the Gra says, no, what are you talking about? That's what the Torah says. You can't follow their ways. Now, the Ramah gives an example of this. The Ramah gives the following example. He says, doctors in the hospital have a certain outfit that they wear. So, say for example, a doctor wears a white coat. Let's use that as the example. Okay. So, I'm sure that from a functionary perspective, obviously it would make sense that the white coat, based on the way it's designed, I'm sure that it has some functionality that is helpful. But we all know doctors that will go and wear a regular outfit when they go to see a patient. Does it really make that big of a difference for them to wear the white coat from a functionary perspective? Thank you so much. So this is a great example of the difference between the Ramah and the Gra about whether or not a doctor should wear a white coat. Says the Ramah the following. He says, something that makes sense, like for example, a doctor, that all doctors, rofe mumcha yeshlo malbush miyuchad, wears a certain outfit, wears a certain uniform, a white coat. Shenikar bo. What's the purpose of it? In order so that they are recognizable. Shehu rofe. You want to know who in the room is the doctor. That's an important thing to know. So therefore, a doctor wears a white coat. So says the Ramah. So therefore, mutter lil bosho. There would be nothing wrong with him wearing the white coat. But the Gra would say no. If we didn't invent it and they invented it, we're just following their ways, even if it is a good idea, adopting their practices just to adopt their practices because there's some quality to it, but at the end of the day, it's not a necessity. You don't need to. So then their girl would say that you would not be able to adopt their practices. So they posed the question to Rav Moshe Feinstein. They asked Rav Moshe Feinstein, actually there are 4 tshuvas in the Igros Moshe, 4 in the Igros Moshe about Thanksgiving, okay? Most of the time there is on one topic, on one question, one responsa recorded in the Igros Moshe. Here, the Igros Moshe has 4 different tshuvas on the matter. I just wanted to point out, just because I can't help myself, there's an amazing video that my brother sent to me recently of Rav Moshe Feinstein with his grandchildren in camp, in camp over the summer, and he just looking at before I show the video, I mean, you have to know that what was so incredible about Rav Moshe Feinstein was not just his legal acumen, was not just his breadth and depth of Torah knowledge, which he was the greatest bucky in the entire world, undisputed. What was most impressive about Rav Moshe Feinstein was that he was the most normal person you would meet. Like, he never had a huge entourage. He was always accessible. His son, Rav David Feinstein, Zichrono Livracha, who just passed away, adopted the same practices as his father, was very similar. He was just so normal. So this video just shows how normal Rav Moshe was. You just see the way that he interacts with his grandson, just sitting in camp. His grandson's playing with his beard, playing with the beard of the Gadol Hador. Like, he's just playing with his hand. It's just, I know I sound like I'm starstruck over here, right? But to me, those scenes are so important because it removes the superhero, the superhero effect, that they're not real people. No, they really are very real people, and people that understood challenges of a generation because they too were faced with those challenges of the generation. And I think that the question of Thanksgiving is a good example of that, because Rav Moshe had a deep appreciation for the United States. I want to show you guys an amazing letter that Rav Moshe Feinstein wrote. It's written, it's on his letterhead, written, and very rare do we have on Rav Moshe's letterhead a letter in English. So this was written by Rav Moshe Feinstein, signed. You see, this is Rav Moshe's signature, signed by Rav Moshe Feinstein, and you know it is because it's clear it's the same handwriting as his Hebrew handwriting. It's exactly the same handwriting. It's on his letterhead, written in English. He writes on October 3rd, 1984, on reaching the shores of the United States, Jews found a safe haven. The rights guaranteed by the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights have allowed us the freedom to practice our religion without interference and to live in this republic in safety. A fundamental principle of Judaism is hakaras hatov, recognizing benefits afforded us and giving expression to our appreciation. Therefore, it is incumbent upon each Jewish citizen to participate in the democratic system which guards the freedoms we enjoy. The most fundamental responsibility incumbent on each individual is to register and to vote. This is a letter that he wrote to the Agudas Harabanim before the 1984 election. Therefore, I urge all members of the Jewish community to fulfill their obligations by registering as soon as possible and by voting. But you see that it's all in the context of that Rav Moshe really has deep appreciation to the United States. He's deep appreciation, deep hakaras hatov for this country that we're blessed to live in. So with all of that said, Rav Moshe Feinstein is presented the question of Emotor laso suuda be Thanksgiving. Shehu Yom Hodaya Shel Hanochrim be'Amerika. Is it permissible to have a Thanksgiving meal the day of Hakaras Hadov of Hodaya Shel Hanochrim of the non-Jews be'Amerika in the United States? Ubedavar Thanksgiving. Kvar kasafti lecha b'tshuva be'igros Moshe chelik beis did Evan Ezer Siman Yud Gimel. So he says, I already responded to this in another place in the Igros Moshe, but it's not just one place. There are 4 places, as I mentioned, in the Igros Moshe. I really think it's because I think they kept trying to get more out of Rav Moshe, but because you see he answers in such a subjective way. It's going to be really up to individuals how they handle Thanksgiving according to Rav Moshe. She'ein la'asar medina. Is it prohibited to engage in a Thanksgiving meal, says Rav Moshe? Certainly not. L'kvoa yom zeh eza simcha, to kesudas bar mitzvah v'nesuin. First of all, it's certainly not prohibited to, let's say, to have a let's say a bar mitzvah or a wedding on Thanksgiving. You don't have to be worried about that. Ella shabali nefesh yesh lahem la'achmir. That a person should be machmir about it. But Rav Moshe, in a couple of other tuvas as well, he says basically it's that bal nefesh yachmir al atzmo, that you should try, if you don't need to have a Thanksgiving meal, so you don't have to have a Thanksgiving meal. It's not something that you have to do, not something that is prohibited. If you want to be machmir and not have one, it's understandable, says Rav Moshe, because potentially maybe you want to be machmir for the gra. But according to the Ramah, certainly there would be no problem with engaging in Thanksgiving. And then he talks about whether or not one is allowed to eat turkey on Thanksgiving. And this, Rav Moshe now says, well, that's where I'm going to draw the line. Because why are you eating turkey on Thanksgiving? Well, for what reason? You eat turkey the rest of the year. If you normally have turkey for lunch or dinner, okay, so all right, then it would make sense. But if the only reason you're eating turkey today, and you rarely eat turkey generally during the year for dinner, so what's the purpose of having turkey now? V'mika minhag l'nochrim le'echol b'yom Thanksgiving basar tarnagol hodu, that they eat turkey on Thanksgiving. Af elu she'ein osin su'uda v'simcha shayach la'asor lahem etzem achilas basar hodu b'yom hahu. It's probably better not to eat turkey, says Rav Moshe, on Thanksgiving, just for the sake of eating turkey on Thanksgiving. This is the opinion of Rav Moshe. Now, Rabbi Soloveitchik, though, was I've heard from Rav Shechter many times, and Rav Shechter also writes it in his Sefer Nefesh Harav, his religious biography on his Torah biography on Rabbi Soloveitchik, that he writes the following about Rabbi Soloveitchik. He says, "Das Rabbeinu Haisa shemuter le'achol basar hodu, turkey, besof November beyond Thanksgiving." That at the end of November, on the day of Thanksgiving, there's nothing wrong with eating turkey, according to Rabbi Soloveitchik. Number one, there's a whole question which we'll probably get to at some point tomorrow night during part 2. We're going to talk about Hakar Satov in general. We're going to talk a little bit about the kashrus of turkey, whether or not turkey is actually a kosher bird. It's a fascinating topic in itself. But Rav Shechter, quoting from Rabbi Soloveitchik and he himself as well, felt as though there's no prohibition of eating turkey in general. Beyond Thanksgiving, and there's nothing wrong with eating turkey on Thanksgiving either, against Rav Moshe Feinstein. And the son of Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, or Moshe Soloveitchik, one of the Gedolei Ador, also felt that there's nothing wrong with having a Thanksgiving meal with turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, and all the fixins on Thanksgiving Day. Rabbi Shechter also always makes a point of mentioning that while Rav Soloveitchik felt, of course, that there is nothing wrong with having a Thanksgiving meal, as Rav Moshe says, if you want to just have a meal where you give Hakar Sadov, we believe in giving Hakar Sadov every single day of the year. I mean, how many times a day do we say Hakar Sadov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything He gives to us? How many? That's Judaism 101. Is Hakar Satov. And if you you have it's not rare for you to have a dinner where you have where you have fleishiks for dinner, and okay, you want to have turkey today, okay, so you have turkey today, and you want to be able to use it as an opportunity to sit down and have a sudas hoda, it shouldn't be an issue. So al pi halacha, certainly it would seem as though there's no problem of having a Thanksgiving dinner. Just know, by the way, that Rav Hutner, Zatzal, Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner, the Rosh Yeshiva of Chaim Berlin, felt as though certainly there's a prohibition of having a Thanksgiving meal. He felt as though it is a d'oraisa prohibition of v'chukosem lo seilechu. So needless to say, I guess in Yeshivas Chaim Berlin, I can't imagine they had a late shacharis on Thanksgiving. He wasn't making special arrangements for the Talmidim to go home for their Thanksgiving meals. I felt as though it was definitely a prohibition of having a Thanksgiving meal. But Rav Moshe felt as though, if you want to, okay, sure, go for it. Rabbi Shechter feels the same way, and Rabbi Soloveitchik himself had a Thanksgiving meal. But Rabbi Shechter would tell us that on Thanksgiving, the shir was longer than on a regular day. Meaning Rabbi Soloveitchik gave shir in YU on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Thanksgiving was no exception. He gave his morning shir on Thursday, and on Thanksgiving, it was a uniquely lengthy shir, where shir, the regular class that Rabbi Soloveitchik gave, Rav Shechter said, was about 2.5 hours. On Thanksgiving, he usually pushed it to 3 hours. To make a point that Thanksgiving doesn't push aside Torah. Nothing pushes aside Torah. We're here to learn. We have on our schedule to learn. We're going to make sure to push to learn even more today, especially the fact that today is a holiday in January. So you don't have your regular college courses. We're going to learn extra today. And then he'd get on his train to go back to Boston, where he would have his Thanksgiving meal with his family. So I just wanted to close also, as I mentioned before, that Thanksgiving Day is a day that we sit around to have a Karsadov. I think it's important to have a Karsadov for the Medina Shel Chesed, as Rav Moshe said, that we have immense Akarsatov to this amazing country. And in fact, Thanksgiving Day, although there is some controversy to its origins, going all the way back to the Mayflower and But, not getting that far back, the day on the calendar, Thanksgiving Day, the fourth Thursday in December, at least the way it's recorded in history.com. And this is the way that I studied it, but this is the most concise format that I found it in, is the story of Thanksgiving Day on the calendar on October 3rd, 1863, expressing gratitude for the pivotal Union Army victory at Gettysburg. President Abraham Lincoln announced that the nation will celebrate an official Thanksgiving holiday on November 26th, 1863. That the speech, okay, who wrote it? It would declare that the fourth Thursday of every November thereafter would be considered an official U.S. holiday of Thanksgiving. There was a time that that it went back to the 3rd of November during Franklin Roosevelt's after the Depression. He says then at the tail end of the Depression, the 34th president of the United States, right? The Roosevelt was, 32nd president of the United States. Franklin Roosevelt, hoping to boost the economy by providing shoppers and merchants a few extra days to conduct business between Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, moved Thanksgiving to November's 3rd Thursday. However, in 1941, Roosevelt bowed to Congress' insistence that the fourth Thursday of November be reset permanently without alteration as the official Thanksgiving holiday. But going back to its original inception, Thanksgiving is a day to have Hakar Satov to the United States. I think that's important that we as Jews do, not just on Thanksgiving, that we do every day of the year. In our general Hakar Satov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for providing us this safe haven that we have. Ultimately, we have to have our eye on the prize to end up in Eretz Yisrael, as the Torah told us in the context of B'chukosem Lo Selechu, that we were in Eretz Mitzrayim. We ended up in Eretz Canaan, but then we know that we were kicked out of Eretz Yisrael again. Now we are in America. There are some good things here. There's some negative things here. There are some things that, according to the Ramah, it's appropriate to adopt that we're learning here. There are some very nice things that we have picked up in this country. However, we have to keep in mind that we are the Am HaNivchar, and ultimately we are going back to Eretz Yisrael. And Amir Tashem will go back to Eretz Yisrael with the proper Hakar Satov for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for ultimately bringing us there, for having sustained his people throughout everything that we've experienced throughout our history. And I think that when you go through the sugya in depth, you have more of an appreciation for God's Torah, for what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us, which is to learn his Torah, to appreciate his Torah, and to appreciate the gifts that he gives us. We'll stop here for tonight. God willing, part 2 is tomorrow night. We'll discuss a little bit about the kashrus of turkey. We'll discuss about Hakar Satov in general. It may even beat the standard go around the table and say, here's what I'm thankful for moment. Who knows? So we'll stop here for now. Wish everyone a wonderful evening and a happy Thanksgiving.